I never used to think much about sleep. When I was a kid, I'd stay up till all hours watching late movies or Johnny Carson. When I was in university, I did most of my work by pulling all-nighters. As a young writer, I would work 16-hour days, pumped up on coffee and nicotine, and then wake up the next morning and do the same thing. It wasn't really until I got married that my sleep fell into some sort of regular pattern, but then my son was born, and that ended that. He was up at all hours for the first 2 or 3 years of his life, and I was playing musical beds and getting up at 5 in the morning to try and get in a bit of writing before he woke up for good. And at some point, just around the time that my son started sleeping through the night, I noticed that something wonky was happening with my sleep. I'd find myself falling asleep in the middle of watching a movie or TV show. The feeling I would get as sleep came on felt like what I thought the moment of death might be like, this kind of blackening around the edges of consciousness, and then the final click as everything goes black. So that started me on the path of going to sleep clinics and doing sleep studies and having electrodes glued to my head so that this chart could be produced at the end of the night that showed what the doctors called the architecture of my sleep, at the end of which it was discovered that I had a disorder that involved the lack of a certain kind of neurotransmitter, and was put on a regime of various brain drugs that came with warnings that said the precise mechanism by which these drugs work is not known, so that it felt a bit like taking a shotgun to my head and hoping that something worked. It's often from the worst kinds of traumas and affliction that fiction is born. As a kid, for instance, growing up Catholic, religion messed up my brain in all kinds of ways that I could have done without. But as a writer, I've been grateful almost every day of my life for growing up Catholic because it gave me so much of my best material. So it turned out to be with sleep. Out of these studies and clinics and electrodes, an image came to me one day of a character who's in a war-torn third world country with a gun to his head, who's suffering from a sleep disorder and who's been fighting to find something that will give him back his sense of alertness and aliveness. And I think in some ways, the novel was a way of letting my character bear the worst of the disorder so I wouldn't have to myself. Now I'm just waiting for the next trauma to hit me so I can start my next novel.